I wanted to give my take on this red versus blue button meme that went around a few weeks ago. If you've never heard of it, it's this viral question that asks, what if everyone in the world had to pick between pressing a red button or a blue button, where if the majority of people in the world pick the blue button, then everyone survives. But if the majority pick the red button, then everyone who picked the blue button dies. So it's kind of a morbid question, an interesting philosophical puzzle. If you've never heard of it before, pause the video and give it a think. Here's what I think. So if everyone's already, you kind of have three different scenarios you could find yourself in. If everyone's already, over half the people have already pressed the red button, then your choice is between pressing the red button and you live, or pressing the blue button and you die. So it's like a suicide button. And that doesn't seem good. I wouldn't want to press the blue button in that scenario. So, and you think of it that way, pressing the red button is saving a life. It's saving your own life, but it is saving one life. If just one person over majority pick the red button, then after that point, everyone else who picks red button is saving one life. So if you feel like morally like you're acting badly by picking the red button, you could think of it that way. Yeah, I'm saving a life by pressing the red button. And anyway, I'm not committing suicide by pressing the blue button. Now, there's another scenario where everyone's already majority picked the blue button. And in that case, it doesn't matter which button you press, it's all the same. You press the blue, nothing happens because you're joining the majority. You press the red, nothing happens because the majority already picked blue. So in that case, it doesn't matter. So if you think of it like that, between those two options, then picking red seems like a life-saving button. Of course you'd want to pick red. However, those aren't the only two options. There is one more very subtle option, and this is the option that you are the tiebreaker. Yes, you are the one vote. Out of everyone in the world, there's 8 billion people, you are the one that's going to be the deciding factor. Everyone else in the entire world is split right down the middle, 50-50, and whichever button you press, that's going to decide the fate of everyone. Now, this is extremely, extremely unlikely, because if there's 8 billion people, just for simplicity, let's assume there's an equal chance of every single outcome, of how many people pressed which button. In that case, the odds that you would be the deciding vote is 1 in 8 billion, basically, which is terrible, terrible odds. You have a much better chance of winning the lottery than having this scenario happen. So if you think of it that way, you could decide, I'm just going to disregard that I could possibly be a tiebreaker. If you totally disregard that you could be a tiebreaker, then I think the problem's pretty simple, and it's obvious to pick the red button because you're saving a life when it matters. However, if there is a chance that you could be the tiebreaker, well, now we got to think about that scenario. In that scenario, if you press the blue button, you're saving 4 billion people's lives. And if you press the red button, you're killing 4 billion people. Half the people in the world. And these are all the people that pick the blue button. So you might think of these are like cooperative, maybe kind people, or at least cooperative people. So you'd be killing a lot of very high quality people. And would you want to live your whole life with that guilt, carrying around this fact that you murdered 4 billion people because of your selfish choice? Even though you got extremely unlucky, you're the 1 in 8 billion chance that this scenario happened. However, you could kind of assuage your guilt slightly by realizing that everyone else that pressed the red button was essentially in the same boat as you, because they were also tiebreakers. Because if they consider your button press as happening before theirs, you can logically think of it in either direction, then their button press is the one that caused the 4 billion people to die. And therefore, they're just as culpable, as guilty, as filled with shame as you are. So in that scenario, you live in a world with 4 billion people left, and you're all just as guilty about this horrible thing that you did. But I mean, that outcome is so freaking rare. You could be tempted to just ignore it completely. But because of the number of people involved, I think you can't ignore it. So let's do a little bit of math. The chance that you are in the scenario is 1 in 8 billion, and the number of people that you would kill if you chose the red button in that scenario is 4 billion. So if you boil it down, you are killing half of the number of people as the odds that you are in that scenario. So if we simplify it down, it's sort of conceptually equivalent to a 50% chance of killing one person, because it's a 1 in 8 billion chance of killing 4 billion people. So if you simplify that math, it's ethically, I guess you could say, kind of equivalent to a 50% chance of killing one person. Now, if you pick the blue button, then you have a sort of conceptual 50% chance of killing yourself, because there's a 50% chance that that's the scenario you're in. So when you look at it that way, the red and the blue buttons are sort of equivalent, actually, strangely enough. The red button is 50% chance to kill someone else, one person, and the blue button is 50% chance to kill yourself. So that makes it a much more interesting thing to think about. Would you rather take a 50% shot that you will die, or a 50% shot that someone else will die? So this kind of gets at the heart of it, whether you're a selfish person, self-interested, or you'd rather have someone else suffer, this sort of thing. And if you just take away the 50-50 part of it, because, you might think, oh, there's a coin flip chance that I am saved from my decision and nothing bad happens. But if we get rid of that part, we can simplify it to say it's a 100% chance. What would you rather do? Would you rather kill yourself or kill someone else? Which is a horrible ethical question. Now, as animals, as a species, clearly we should prefer to kill someone else, because that is our survive and reproduce strategy. We have our genes survive and their genes go away, and ours we consider are better because our mind is in the seat of our own body, so we just consider it that way. So from an evolutionary standpoint, you'd probably want to pick the red button. But as a society, if you value what's been built, all these experiences that we have together, us as a collective, and you don't want to compete with anyone, you want to cooperate, then maybe the blue button is for you. And also some people, ethically, they don't want to cause harm to anyone else. They would rather cause it to themselves. So then they'd pick the blue. And then there's some people who literally just are miserable and wouldn't mind not being here, and those people would be justified, I guess, in picking the blue. It would align with what they like. So yeah, there's different reasons for why you pick red or blue. And which would I pick? It's like a horrible decision. I don't want to pick that. If forced, maybe I have to lean with red, just because I'm sorry guys, but man, I put a lot of work into this life, but man, I don't want to, someone else was innocent, but I'm innocent too. I think what happens is that this button game is put on by some sick dictator, and that's the one to blame. So I don't think that anyone should be held responsible for, morally which button they press. I think they're both awful and terrible, and I don't think it's really ethically too different which one you press. And I guess I'd lean towards pressing the red one. If you think that you'd rather press the blue one, that makes totally sense. And if you are upset with me and angry with me, you think I'm a bad person for picking the red one, I get it. I guess I understand that too. But, this is a horrible situation we're in, and I don't think there's any clear right answer. If there was a clear right answer, I think that everybody would, come to the answer and agree on it. But since there's so much debate and everyone arguing, I think it is a fundamentally difficult question. And I hope I haven't disappointed you. I hope you don't hate me now for what I would lean towards, but maybe be reassured that I don't think it's an easy answer. And, I like being here, but I don't consider myself selfish, but the situation's horrible. So come on, man. I don't know. Those are my thoughts. So if you want, tell me what your reasoning is in the comments. You can tell me if you disagree with something or you think my perspective's off somehow. I'd love to know about it. So let me know.